there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today we're doing a tea time chat about dupes and why I think the focus on dupes for some people they need to take a chill pill. Welcome to another video. Thank you so very much for watching. If you're into eyeshadow palettes, Estee and Catrice, and getting the use out of your makeup the way that I am, then definitely stay tuned because I do lots of videos on here. And today I'm coming to you with another one of my opinion pieces where I like chatting about a different topic that I see going around or something that I, notice from my comments, and I'm like, oh, I need to open the discussion and see how other people feel as well. So this video is just me sharing my thoughts, and you can of course share your thoughts in the comment section down below as well. Would very much like to invite you to share your feelings about dupes as well, because that's the topic for today, dupes. I'm going to be cutting the video into different sections, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But before we do that, I need to tell you that I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and it greatly skews my makeup preferences. And because I have been buying, trying, and reviewing makeup for more than a decade, I have some very strong feelings about a lot of makeup related topics. Not just dupes, but lots of other things as well. I know what I like, so if you'd like to join the Snow Angel Club and stay up to date with that, then just click the subscribe button down below. So yes, let's chat about dupes. I've got a couple of topics to go over with you today. So I first want to go over why I think dupes are a good thing, because dupes definitely have merit, and I definitely see merit in some level of dupage, you could say. But I do want to focus the main part of the video on why I think that also focusing on dupes a lot isn't necessarily good in terms of the grander scheme of things. So we're going to also talk about what is a dupe actually, what do we mean when we say dupe, and also why dupes are bad, and that's going to be the main part of the video. So the video will be cut into chapters, so if you just want to watch one part you can, but that's the way we're going to roll it. So let me chat to you about why dupes work. Oh, and before we get to all of that goodness, I need to, of course, share with you my cup of tea today. So I have another puka tea because they are my favorite. And this is a new one that I discovered a couple of months ago. This is their Breathe In Eucalyptus tea, which has been really, really good. It's really refreshing, yet very warming at the same time. So that's the tea I'm having. I only just got it, so it's still sort of doing its thing. So yeah, but that's the tea I'm having today. So maybe you also want to grab a drink, because very often these videos do tend to get a little bit longer for me. But I hope you're here for it and that you just want to share a drink, chatting to a friend. That's sort of the entire concept of this entire video series that I'm doing. So let me unpack why I think dupes are a good thing, because there's definitely merit in dupes. Dupes definitely have a role to play within the realm of makeup, but I also think there are some downsides. So I first want to go over the positive things, the reason why I think dupes are also a source of good. And I think that dupes are a great way to figure out whether a product might be right for you. Sometimes spending a lot of cash on one particular makeup product, it can be, something that's perhaps something you don't have the money for, and dupes can be a great way for you to test out, hey, is this going to be worth it? I personally have one of the Zara dupe perfumes, the Red Temptation, which is apparently a dupe for the Baccarat Rouge one, just to see if I might like it, because I wasn't, at the moment I bought that, I wasn't aware that you could actually get small testers of these much more expensive niche perfumes, and then you can try it out that way. But that way I was like, great, I can at least try it, see if I like it, and I now know I don't need to spend the money on the Baccarat Rouge because it's not my fragrance. It's not for me. It's, Zara fragrances don't last the longest, but just the way it develops on my skin, it's not appealing to me at all, and then therefore I don't get the hype. I did get a small tester of the original to try that out, and it does the similar thing. It's really similar on my skin, where I'm like, no, this is not for me. With my body chemistry, not gonna work, not gonna work. Another reason why I think dupes may be a good thing is if you just don't have the budget to spend on a luxury item like makeup or even fashion bits, that it's, good that you can buy something at a less expensive price point And that way you can still, you know, get a good product, but you don't have to shell out the 50, 60, 100. And if we're talking fashion, it could go into the thousands, of course. So I think that especially if you need to be aware of what budget you have to spend on things that don't have to do with, you know, staying alive, that dupes can be a really good thing for people to, you know, have something nice, because, you know, we're all human. We want nice things, but we don't always have the money to spend it on all of those things. So yeah, I think that especially for people who have to be very careful with their budget, and truth be told, with the way the world is going right now, people, more and more people need to pay attention to how much money they can spend on other things. And I think, you know, on the one hand, it's like, I wouldn't mind paying a bit more for a good product, but if you can get it for less, why not? So I think that with dupes, it's, you know, giving a lot of people an opportunity to just find good quality makeup at a bargain. And I think that that's why dupes and dupe videos always do well, and why the minute you go like, here, I have this lipstick and I think it may be a dupe for that I think it's really, really exciting also for me to try and find them. Like, finding a great dupe for a product that is much more expensive, I think is one of the best things. So yeah, trying to find good quality makeup at a bargain, I love that. I love when I find something at the drugstore that costs a mere couple of euros. I've said this many times in the past, but I love the Essence Sensitive Mineral Powder, which I feel is formula-wise exactly the same to what the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Filter gives me. But the Charlotte Tilbury is like over 40 euros, and the Essence one is 3 euros, maybe 3.50. So it's like a fraction of the price point. And then I feel that dupes definitely have merit. You can get some great products at bargain prices, and I think that that's also why we all like chasing down dupes, because it's like this satisfaction of like, see, I don't have to pay that much for a good quality product. I can actually get it for much cheaper, so why spend more? And that's how I feel about like vast categories of makeup. Brows, primers, setting sprays. I don't tend to use those from very high-end brands, because they are also things I go through quite quickly, and because it's products I go through quite quickly, I'd rather buy them from more affordable brands, because mascara is another one where, you know, I don't really go into dupes there, but because I need to replace my mascara so often, if I find my Catrice Glam and Doll waterproof mascara is just as good as something that's like 35, and I need to chuck it every 3 months anyway, then why would I spend so much money on it? Because it's going down the drain instantly. So I think that dupes are also a great way to figure out, just finding good quality products, but that are more affordable than most other things. So those are the 3 main points why I think, focusing on dupes can be a good thing. It keeps things affordable. It makes sure that people who can't afford a lot of luxury in their life can join in on the fun. And I think it's a great way to just be able to try things before you buy the real deal. So I definitely see that, finding dupes and talking about them is, something that we all do and we like doing. So I see definitely a positive thing there as well. But I also see a downside. But before we get to the downside of dupes, I want to discuss with you, but what is a dupe? Because I have found, and this is actually a point that was also made by Amanda Z, because she was talking about dupes in a recent video I watched by her. And she made this point as well, I believe, where there seems to be a very wide definition of what a dupe can be, and where for some people it's only one thing, and then for other people it seems to be another thing, and I seem to be more in can be. So what is a dupe? If you just look it up, a dupe is going to be like a product that is as similar as it can be to a much more expensive or different product in shade and formula. I think that that's sort of when we're looking for dupes, what most people seem to be looking for are 100% matches. So let's say, like I mentioned, the example of the Charlotte Tilbury, We have the powder, and then we have an essence powder, and it's pretty much the same. The only downside is the essence doesn't come in different shades, the Charlotte Tilbury does. So if you have a deeper skin tone, it's not going to work for you because the essence one only comes in one shade. Similar thing that I found is, for instance, the Tower 28 Beach Please cream blush. The Milani Cheek Kiss blushes are very similar in formula, but I don't have a shade that matches. Or, for instance, you have shades that are really, really close, but that aren't quite the same thing. So can we still call those dupes? And I think that there's definitely something to be said for dupes that are sort of like made or created or that are close to, like in the spirit of a much more expensive product rather than it being exactly the same thing but cheaper. And I definitely think that what I'm seeing happening online is that people only want the 100% dupe. Like, it's just in different packaging, but formula and shade-wise, it's spot on. And if you're looking for those kind of things, I think you're going to be very hard-pressed to find actual dupes, because that would be copyright. And you can't just blatantly copy something. Like, you'll be fined. So I think that dupes happen on 3 different levels if you find them. So as I already mentioned, you can dupe a formula, you can dupe packaging, and you can dupe shades. So sometimes what I've found most often is that a shade can match something that's much more high-end, especially in like lipsticks, quite easily. But then, for instance, the formula will not be the same. I mean, my favorite lipstick that is a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk one is the Catrice Power Plumping Gel Lipstick in Speak Up. But the Power Plumping Gel Lipstick from Catrice is a sheer, much less long-lasting, is that English? But it doesn't last as long as the Pillow Talk one, but it definitely is a shade dupe. It doesn't have the same formula, it doesn't have the same wear time, but if you want the color, then they're definitely a match. It also happens that sometimes a formula is very similar, like I mentioned with the Essence and the Charlotte Tilbury powder, but where it doesn't have all the shades and it doesn't come in the packaging. I've recently found that the highlighters that Catrice did in the Disney Villains collection have very similar packaging to what Charlotte Tilbury does for her Beauty Light ones, but the shades just aren't the same. So I feel that duping can just happen on so many levels, and just because something comes in certain packaging doesn't make it a dupe, in my book. However, if a shade is, like, when it, formula-wise, I think is very difficult to say whether something is a dupe, because different formulas wear differently on different people, and the way a product is, like, put together, like the actual formulation of a product, those are trade secrets, so that's never actually going to happen. It could just very well be that because I have dry skin, I don't need to spend this much money on, I don't know, a highlighter, a liquid highlighter, because it wears fine on me. But if you have oilier skin, maybe you need the high-end thing because the high-end product has a component in it and makes it last longer. You know what I mean? So definitely formula, I think, is the most difficult to do a 100% exact dupe. But I'm seeing people also calling this out for shades. And this actually happened on one of my very first shorts, because I like also just making content where I try out and I try to see if something is a dupe. And then a lot of people were leaving a comment on that video saying, oh, but those aren't similar. How could you think that? They're nothing like each other. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to look within my collection what I have, what could be similar. That to me is still a dupe. Is it 100% exactly the same? No. Does it have to be? Like Hannah Louise Poston would say, it's duping the vibes. So that if you want to go for that, actually I'm wearing the shade on my lips today. This is not on purpose, but it's trying to dupe out Lisa Eldridge's Cinnabar with Max Chili. And some people, it's not the same thing, but I feel on my complexion, with the way things wear on me, whether I'm wearing Lisa Eldridge's Cinnabar or Max Chili, it looks the same on me, and I would wear it with the same kind of looks. So for me, it's therefore a dupe. Is it a dupe as in 100% the same formula, 100% the same shade, 100% the same packaging? No. But I'm achieving a similar vibe that I also get with this lipstick. So if I were to recreate this look and I would put on Max Chili and I wouldn't tell you halfway through this video that I had changed my lipstick, I don't think many of you would notice that I'm suddenly wearing something else. So that's what I'm thinking of as well when it comes to dupes, is that, you know, your coloring can affect what something might look like on you. So what is a dupe on person A may not be a dupe on person B. And I definitely think that sort of getting things that are close but not exactly the same, those could still be dupes. And I don't need to have the exact same product for it to be a dupe, I feel. So yeah, if I were to answer the question I just asked myself, what is a dupe? According to me, it doesn't have to be a 100% match, because on a lot of levels that's just not possible. So for me, a dupe is like in the spirit of product X, and then I'm happy. So if it gets close, if it's similar, like they're sisters not twins kind of idea, that I'm usually happy. As long as it creates a similar-ish look on your face, then I think something can be called a dupe, and that's going to be very personal, like I already mentioned, because your skin tone, your undertone, your eye color, your hair color, what makeup you wear with the clothes you wear. Like today I'm wearing a gray sweater, so I feel I need to wear a bolder lip, because else I just go like, whoa, like I just disappear. But if I then put on something that's a bit more popping, it works a lot better. You know what I mean? And I tried to tie the lipstick to my eye look, because the eye look is a bit more warm toned. The cheek is a little bit more cooler, so I felt I had to go with something warmer on the lips to, again, not disappear and have the eyes be too stark. That's how makeup works in my brain. I definitely will look at myself in the mirror before I put on a lip to see what top I'm wearing, and just to make sure I tie everything together, which is why lipstick for me is so important, to really sort of like, to me they're like the shoes of a makeup look. For me, shoes tie the entire outfit together, and for my makeup it's a lipstick. So for me it's much more about a shade than a formula at the end of the day when it comes to lipsticks. So that brings me to what I really want to dig into in this video, which is why I think that dupes, with all the fun and like the fun content you could create with it, the fact that it can really be beneficial to people, I also think there is a darker side to dupes. And I'm actually being asked this question quite a lot sometimes by people, like if I can try certain brands that are known as dupe brands. So that's where I wanted to start. And it's like copycat brands. So Makeup Revolution, a lot of people have forgotten this, but Makeup Revolution actually started their careers as being a copycat brand. They had Too Faced and Naked palette dupes, and that's what got them a lot of buzz and a lot of hype, because here was the color story of the ColourPop chocolate bar, no, ColourPop, Too Faced chocolate bar, from a brand that was selling it under £10 at the UK drugstore. So everybody was like, wah! Whereas the Makeup Revolution formula was very similar to what Sleek had to offer. In fact, I think that very early on, Makeup Revolution and Sleek were made in the same factory, because they had like the same embossing stamps on their palettes. There was a lot of overlap in between the way the pans looked and the formulas performed between the two brands when Makeup Revolution first started out. And they kind of completely pushed Sleek out of the market because they were doing these dupe things, because a Too Faced palette was 45 euros and here you could get it at like a fraction of the price, which is why I had a couple of these like Makeup Revolution chocolate bars, but I mainly had the ones that didn't dupe out the Too Faced ones. And that's also how I feel, for instance, like you have C Color, I believe, and also Alter Ego, that used to be called Bad Habit, that dupe out like the Pat McGrath and the like Natasha Denona palettes. So those have become like the Naked 2 and the Urban Decay and the Too Faced of the world today, where makeup has gotten much more expensive, and then you get these other brands that do it again. And also Profusion has a couple of these like dupe-ish kind of palettes where it's just very obvious that, you know, there's another palette that inspires it. And I believe that when Makeup Revolution did these, they switched the color story around. So it was the same shades as the Too Faced chocolate bar, but they would put a couple of the shades in a different spot, so it didn't look like 100% the same. However, with C-Color, and also, like, I think Alter Ego does also rearrange the color story. But with C-Color, it looks exactly the same. So I'm actually asking myself, like, how has no one ever sued them yet for, like, copyright and, like, breach of copyright? Because all of these things are copyrighted, there are patents on it. You can't just copy something 100% and be okay, you know? That's like not done. So I think that definitely Alter Ego tries to avoid the copyright issues by just rearranging the color story, and I know Makeup Revolution did that for a fact for a while there as well. So to answer the question, like, how do I feel about these copycat brands? I understand why they appear, I understand why they exist, I understand why they appeal to people for the reasons that I've mentioned before. However, I, on a personal note, do not engage with those brands. I've never tried Alter Ego, I've never tried C-Color, I don't want to try them because I want to encourage people to, if you can't afford the palettes they are duping, to save up if you have a bit of Christmas money, or, you know, to set yourself a goal. Like at the end of 2024, I would love to be able to buy myself a Natasha Denona palette and save up. And for instance, every time you have an extra quarter somewhere, you put it in a jar, and at the end of 2 years, you can buy yourself this palette that you've been lusting after. That, to me, is the way that it should go, rather than buying this dupe palette. And the reason why I say that has to do with my own experience sometimes buying these dupes. Like I said, I see merit in dupes. I know why people do it. I think that if you really don't have the money to buy a Natasha Denona palette, that it's great that these things are on offer. However, they are definitely impacting like IP and also makeup innovation. So if affordable brands, if the only thing they're starting to do are dupes, and I'm sort of like a bit on the fence with how many dupes Estes and Catrice seem to be doing now. I mean, Catrice just comes out with things that look exactly like Charlotte Tilbury products right now, and I'm like, I'm not sure. But it could kill innovation. So rather than drugstore brands putting out good makeup at an affordable price point that is inherently their own, they're now putting resources and trying to make things look like other high-end brands. And I get why, because of social media, because of the hype. I get it, I totally do. I feel that even if you don't have the budget for high-end makeup, you still deserve really good makeup at a lower price point. But why does it have to be exactly the same thing as the high-end thing? I personally have never understood that. And I think it can just really, really hurt the innovation we see in the industry. And that it's, you know, it's a bit like, this is perhaps a bit of a weird comparison to make here, but I grew up in the 90s, and in the 90s, pop had its moment. We had Backstreet Boys, we had NSYNC, and that rivalry was really like played up by the media, whereas these guys were like, whatever, they're doing their thing, we're doing our thing, but they were also sort of like played against each other at management. Like NSYNC came later than Backstreet, but Backstreet was told, like, hey, they were getting burned out for doing all these shows, and then the minute they dropped the ball on something, here were NSYNC, taking their slot in this TV show that they couldn't do, because they had decided they weren't going to do it, and they were under the same management. So I'm not calling NSYNC a dupe of Backstreet, but I'm just trying to like give an example from a completely different field so that you can sort of put it in a different perspective. So if dupes mean that other makeup doesn't get made, that's what I'm trying to say. If it's like downplaying the success of other brands, then I think that that's a bad thing. Try to make your own unique stuff. And that's something that we're really seeing, not just in makeup, but you're seeing this in a lot of realms where everything just starts to feel a bit like a copy of something else. And, we need to reward creativity and, brands that do put the resources into developing new things, rather than, people who are just saying, okay, I'm just going to rip off some other brand, because that's essentially what it is. It is a rip off. But I do understand that if you have less money and you would like to have that you are tempted to buy something like this. I definitely do. So as I already mentioned, I feel that focusing on dupes can lead to products being pushed out that otherwise would get made. Because, you know, you need to have a good dupe. Now, this is something, though, that has been happening for years. A lot of makeup, I've already mentioned it in previous videos, a lot of makeup is only made in, like, what, 5 factories in the world? I mean, really, there aren't that many factories in the world making makeup. So really, if you're buying lip liner A from brand expensive and lip liner B from brand affordable, chances are they were made in the same factory. So is that then a dupe? Maybe they put something else in it. Maybe they have different brands. And I think I actually went over this in the Need for Swatches as well video. And some of the other discussion topics I've already gone over where, you know, there isn't that much variety in how makeup is produced. So essentially, I think there are a lot more dupes than what we give the market credit for. I mean, this was definitely when I first got into makeup true for brands like Maybelline and L'Oreal. L'Oreal and Maybelline are made by the same company, L'Oreal, which is also part of creating YSL makeup. So you would find, and I think what else? Oh, Bourjois owns Chanel. So you have these drugstore brands that will do products that are very similar to these luxury makeup lines, simply because they're all like under the same umbrella. So L'Oreal used to do the Lumi Touch Concealer, YSL Touche Éclat dupe, for sure. The L'Oreal Infallible Foundation is a YSL All Hours dupe, for sure. Maybelline had a couple of these products in the past. I don't remember them from the top of my head. The Bourjois Potted Blushes, they're Chanel dupes. They don't do the exact same shades, but they're definitely like a very similar formula. So this idea of like having more affordable makeup that is similar to high end has been around for years, and there's actually entire brands that have created their identity for it, but they don't call it a dupe because they don't do exactly the same thing, but they'll do things at a more affordable price point. So yeah, if we start focusing on like 100% exact dupes for high-end products rather than products in the spirit of brand expensive, because that's sort of what I was saying when I was talking to you about the definition of a dupe. To me, that needs to be in the spirit of. Then I think, you know, you can still have innovative products and then it's still fine. But the minute we go, it needs to be a 100% like exact shade dupe because else it's not a dupe. That to me goes into the realm of, but then you don't want product innovation. You just want things on the cheap, which just wanting things on the cheap is the thing that's wrecking our planet. I still want to do a video at some point about sustainability as well, but I can't do everything in one video. But that push, that's a very dangerous one, I think. And that also goes into what I said at the start of the video, where I think that dupes can really open the doors for more people enjoying makeup. I do think that, especially if you are on a budget, that you need to realize that maybe you can't own everything, which is very difficult because in this like social media realm where everybody's pushing products down your throat, it can be very tempting to want the next thing, to want that more expensive product. But if you know that you need to take a step back because this month or maybe this year, you don't have the budget for it and that you can't buy and own everything, that's okay, and that saving up for something you truly want is better than just buying a lot of cheap things hoping to get that thing, like chasing that dream. And that's definitely something that hits pretty close to home. There are definitely things that are like on this hypothetical wish list of like more expensive designer bags or shoes that I would like to get or whatever. But I just know that with my salary, that's just out of reach. And that I'm like, you know, do I then need to go and like find a dupe at Zara, which I know won't last? And of course, you know, buying designer doesn't mean you get the quality that you think it's going to be, because some of it is also made on the cheap. It's just like, it's about the branding. It's about, you know, and this is again, something that's fed by social media, people showing off their Gucci bags. And I'm like, I don't know. It's this voyeurism kind of thing, people being able to see what other people have, and then you want the next thing as well. And I think we just need to be really careful with that, and that just know what you can spend. I don't make videos about this, but I possibly could. I mean, I've worked with a makeup budget for years now, where I say, this is how much money I can spend every month on makeup, and some months I go over, but other months I spend less on it. And when I look at it all over a year, then this is how much I spend, and I feel okay with that. I've never made content with that because I don't want to put my financial information on the internet like some other people do and are very open about it. And I'm like, I don't want everybody, like my students watch this, my colleagues can watch this. Like, nobody needs to know. The IRS doesn't need to know. They will probably know, they probably know, but I like to keep that a little closer to the chest. And I don't feel comfortable sharing that part of my life and how I do that, but know that I budget and know that I will sort of go like, okay, this month I have the money to buy this, and when it's gone, it's gone. That's sort of how I do it. And I've worked, that's the way it's worked for me for years. The year I moved house, I knew I couldn't spend a lot of money on makeup, so I didn't buy as much makeup. I think I bought like 3 eyeshadow palettes in 2017 because I was moving. And last year I knew over the summertime that I was going to remodel my house, and then I wanted to allocate money towards that. So I was also spending less money on makeup. So that's sort of the way I kind of organize my spending. And I just think everybody should do that. If you truly want a Pat McGrath Mothership eyeshadow palette, save up. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Give yourself a goal and then buy the real deal. And the reason why I say that is whenever I have lusted after something that was much more expensive than what I could afford at the time, and I made do with buying the more affordable alternative, I always felt a bit let down because either something broke really easily on me, like within a few months of wear, especially with like cheaper shoes and bags, I've had that issue. But also with makeup products, like all of those, like Makeup Revolution. Actually, I did this with Makeup Revolution because I was doubting whether I wanted that Too Faced chocolate bar because so many people loved it. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. I bought the semi-sweet chocolate bar, the second one, before I bought the original one. And then at first I bought the Makeup Revolution one, and then I bought the Real Deal. And I ended up keeping the Real Deal around for a much longer period of time than the chocolate bar by Makeup Revolution because the formula wasn't quite the same, and I did have that color story, but it still left me wanting to try the original chocolate bar because when I tried the Makeup Revolution version, I was like, I kind of like this. Now, how would the original wear? You know what I mean? So it actually made me spend more money in the end rather than if I had just held off of buying the Makeup Revolution one and I would have bought the Too Faced one straight away. You know what I mean? So for me, I think that just being smart with your money and knowing when to spend and when to splurge and when to sort of like say, okay, this I'm going to buy on the cheap. I definitely make those decisions on a day-to-day basis, and I think that goes for a lot of people. So for me, that definitely goes into as well. We need to keep something in our lives that we want to achieve, that we want to acquire. I think that that's something that just makes it part of the human experience, and just wanting everything because you see everybody else on YouTube having things. Like, the only reason why I have a giant makeup collection is because I have been buying makeup for 10 years, not because I bought everything in one go. For sure not. For sure not. And I do think that, especially here on YouTube, but also TikTok, it can be so easy to be fooled by what people show. Again, something I have a lot of are shoes. I don't have a lot of shoes because I bought a lot of shoes in one go. I mean, I have 15 pairs of Dr. Martens, but I've been buying a pair every year for the past 15 years. So then you get a lot because I don't throw things away, because if something is perfectly fine and it doesn't have holes and it's not giving me a rash or whatever, if we're talking makeup, then I have a tendency to keep things around that I love and I don't give it away. Some people call that hoarding. I like to just hang on to things. I have a blazer that I've owned for 10 years. I wear it once a year, but I still wear it. You know, it's like, and yeah, do I have more than what I can potentially put on my body in a given year, clothing and makeup wise? Yes. So, but that's why I declutter. That's why I try to keep things under wraps. I try things for the channel. So, you know, I try to keep it all balanced, and I try to not overdo it, because there are other things in life that I also want to do. So I try to be very mindful of how I do that. The last point I want to make, and it definitely ties into the points I made before, I think that if brands stop doing original things and we only see affordable brands doing dupe things, that it's also a waste of resources, because the product already exists. Why do we just need another version of the same thing? It's a waste of money, it's a waste of resources, and it's really just making us all part of that race to the bottom of overproduction that's killing our planet slowly but surely. And it's not really, like, I'd rather have fewer makeup releases and less makeup out there than just this influx of all these different releases that not only is everything starting to look the same at this point, but also where everything is just, you know, very easy to dupe out, which is why I'm currently doing a series over on this channel called Palette Dupes, where I compare 3 sometimes palettes that seem very similar to me, and then I just swatched them out to see how similar they actually are. And because they are in different packaging, and sometimes you just think they look very differently in the pan, but then when you swatch out the shades, it's like, oh, this palette is exactly doing the same thing. And very rarely so far, I've done like 6 of these so far, and very rarely do I really get this revelation of like, wow, this is completely unique. Hardly ever. So it's one of those things that I started doing also to keep myself accountable and to inform myself for like a new decluttering series, to figure out like, what should I keep? What should I toss? Is everything that we see like new and sparkly, and is that something we need? So I think that this whole idea of dupes, like, for some reason, it's a lot of Charlotte Tilbury products. I'm not sure why everybody is so hung up on trying to dupe Charlotte Tilbury products. And maybe one of you can like offer insights on that, because I'm just realizing it as I'm sitting down to film this video, and I'm like, but a lot of dupes are Charlotte Tilbury. Why? Why? Maybe the brand just has a very open door policy and it doesn't mind, and other brands are a bit more vigilant and they kill these kind of ideas like in the boardroom and we never get to see the light of day. Maybe that's part of it as well. I'm not sure, but very often what I find when I see like this whole like dupe thing, it's like just looking for the next hit, and it's looking for like whatever else is new here, and that's definitely something I try to not make part of my channel and my content. Like, I'm not here to talk about the newest of the new. I try to help you find actually good makeup that you're gonna love and that you know is going to stand the test of time. That's what I'm here for. That's sort of like the aim of what I try to do with my channel. And not so much like, here's a new thing, like, ooh, and then you never see it again. That's not what I'm about. And I feel that especially when it comes to dupe content, it does really well whenever I do a video where I talk about dupes, especially it's like a full face of dupe makeup. I mean, I keep a running list in my like content calendar so I can keep track of things when I find it, but I can do them like once a year, every 2 years at that, because that's what I'm able to find organically. But I'm not gonna go and chase like the next dupe. Like, I don't want to be known for like, oh, this is the go-to place where you find dupes. And there are creators that do this, that chase down these like dupe things. And I would go extremely, like, I would just go crazy trying to create content like that, because yes, I know it does well. Yes, I know people are always looking for a bargain, because who doesn't love a bargain? But I also think it's a bit problematic, especially as a creator, if you're the one having to try all of this. It's just so wasteful, and it's just so much about just churning out product for the sake of churning out product, because cheap brands are trying to find like what will do well next and get people to talk about it on social media because it's a dupe for a much more high-end product. I don't know. This is definitely something I'm seeing over on TikTok a lot where, oh, but there's this like $100 cream and now it's this. And I'm like, oh, no. I don't want dupes. I want products that work well. And I don't care what the price point is. If it's a more expensive price point, then I don't mind shelling out the money if I know it's going to be good. And I'd much rather pay one time for something that costs more money overall than like 10 very cheap things that are almost like it. You know what I mean? So that's also one of the things why I'm like, I just want to be very mindful of this. I don't want to promote it on the channel. I think that dupes, as I already mentioned at the start of the video, there's definitely a market for it. I understand why that market is there, and I definitely do want to be helpful when it comes to these things. But if you hear me talking about dupes, it's because I just stumbled upon it. Like Bob Ross would say, it's a happy little accident. If I do find myself a dupe, it's not something I'm chasing. And I definitely think that when it comes to creating content, I think we have to be very mindful that this is just going to like, you know, it's just this race to the bottom kind of thing again. And I'm like, I'm just a bit over this. And I've definitely done this as well with my like fashion philosophy, you could say, where definitely during the pandemic, I have been replacing a lot of my clothes with either better quality items or that are like much better produced, that are much more sustainable, much better quality products, but also a lot of vintage clothing. So I feel that even though I still have like a similar amount of stuff, I am able to focus it more so because I don't need a lot of like cheap shoes anymore if I have a couple of really, really good pairs that I feel are much more comfortable. Because I have found, especially with like shoes, that spending a bit more means they last better, they are much better in the rain, and that they are just something that I can wear for years. Like my first pair of Dr. Martens, I've owned them since 2009, and they're still going strong. Still going strong. And they feel like slippers on my feet, so why would I buy like whatever's trendy next if that's something I really enjoy wearing and I wear them all the time? Like, I don't know how you feel about this, but that's just something I really, really feel very strongly about when it comes to dupes and also when it comes to dupe makeup. So that's why I feel, yes, dupes, I can see why we love them, but it's just not something that I truly want to engage with myself. And I would like to advise you that if you can't afford it, to try and buy the real deal as much as you can, because it's just a lot more satisfying. Like if you've worked really hard for a year, what better way to reward yourself with a pretty thing that you've been lusting after for a year, whatever it is, whatever your budget allows that to be, and to covet those things, which is one of the reasons when I do declutters, I struggle so much getting rid of some things that have been in my makeup collection for a while, because it brings me back to me really going like, oh, that Dior highlighter that I lusted after for 6 months I was finally able to buy. But I'm in a position right now where I'm quite comfortable. I know exactly what's going to come in and out every single month. And as long as that doesn't change, I'm pretty sure that, you know, I can like afford to go on the same route as I've been going. And I know that for some people it's like they see me do hauls and they see all the products I have and it's like this thing, oh, but know that that was years of me building up a collection. Know that that's also because I'd make these videos, which took me a lot of time and effort, and working for free for I think 8 or 9 years until I started to make a little bit of money back. And now that I am making a little bit of money through AdSense, and here, you know, here and there I might be paid for something, which I'm always transparent about, by the way, I'm putting it back into the channel straight away. The money I make through AdSense is going back into it, which allows me to buy more makeup because I no longer have to take it out of my own paycheck. It allows me to swatch out 10 Maybelline lipsticks. It allows me to do a full face of Kiko Milano. It allows me to buy the new Essence and Catrice collection straight away as they're coming in. And I can buy the entire lipstick line rather than just like a few shades like I used to do. It makes for great content. It's products I buy for the channel, not for my own personal use. And there's a very big difference, I think, between content creators and your average makeup consumer. And I love makeup to the point where I do my makeup almost every single day, but before I go to work. I love chatting about it, I love trying out new things, but I also love going back to old favorites. And I think that that's why I've built my channel the way it is, because I want to entice you to do the same thing. Not to buy more and more and more, but there is a certain level of newness I need to bring into the channel to keep things fresh, to keep things interesting. That's just the way it is. But I definitely do try to limit that and not go overboard and like churn out the new all the time, because else there's no space to go back to older things that I still love. And I think that with dupes, the cheap palettes that are duping out more expensive things are the things that have been decluttered like that. Once I owned the more expensive thing, it was out, but the more expensive thing is the thing that stays. And that's what I feel it should be much more about. And that's why I think that focusing on dupes or requesting dupes or thinking that dupes need to be 100% the same is incredibly toxic. And that's also something that you as a viewer can control in what you request from creators, and follow creators. Like, if there's plenty of creators who do a lot of dupes. I know that Jen Phelps focuses a lot on finding drugstore dupes for more high-end things, which I would highly recommend if you are looking for that type of content, because I watch her to see to see as well what's going on right there. But I don't think it's something that everybody needs to do. Ask people if they know what good products are. And that's much more important than, hey, there is a good product here, but I want to pay less for it. That thinking, which is what I'm seeing a lot, that I feel is terrible. And it's the reason why, you know, a brand like Shein is selling much more clothing than Zara. We're all trying to go cheaper. And there's a good reason why for some people that has to happen. But to be quite fair, I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, I don't mind spending a bit more. And that's a privilege. I very much realize that. I know not everybody can do that. But I'm at a stage in my life where I'm like, I can do something for the planet by buying fewer things, but that are a little bit more expensive and that I view as investment pieces that I hope to be able to wear or use or do something with for, you know, a good chunk of my life. Rather than, you know, that one thing that you wear for a season and you need to get rid of it. And I know that for some people that's reality. That's the way they need to live their life, because else they can't afford anything. But I've come to a point in my life where that's just not the case. And I need to be very honest with myself about that. When it comes to dupes, I therefore don't feel I need the dupes. Because I'm like, I'd rather buy. Like, if Pat McGrath comes up with a mega mothership tomorrow that's like 500 euros, I'm not going to buy it. But if, you know, at some point in time, I'm like, oh, I've got a bit of extra cash, or maybe my channel starts doing well, or maybe I'm making more money, and because I'm doing this whole creation thing, I might also be able to request things at some point from brands if this channel grows big enough. So there's just a very different relationship to products, I think, if you're on this side of the camera. I think that definitely skews what you would like to do. And for me, finding dupes has never been part of my identity. And I have just found throughout my life, throughout my personal experiences, that buying something cheap because I wanted something that was more expensive, so I bought the other thing, that has never worked for me. The final bit got a bit rambly, so I hope you were able to follow my train of thought. I definitely went on a bit of a rant there, but I hope I was able to articulate my ideas surrounding dupes quite well. And that, again, I think that if you want dupes, and that there's no shame in that, some people need them to just get by, and I'm all here for it. But I do think that relying on dupes is definitely something that I don't want to see the industry going into, especially not when it comes to affordable makeup, because you can have good affordable makeup that isn't a dupe for a high-end product. I think I want to leave it at that. So thank you so very much for joining me today. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on this topic. I would really love to know. Thumbs up the video if you liked it, subscribe as well if you'd like to. I know these videos don't get a whole lot of views usually, but the comment section is always on fire when I do a tea time chat. So that's why I love doing them and keep doing them, because I think it's really nice to get the engagement with you guys and discuss these topics together. I'm very curious to hear what your stance is. And then, yeah, I really hope you enjoyed watching today, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye!